Hello and welcome to Macro Mondays brought to you by David Gockstein. I'm your host, Landy, and today is August 17th, 2026, and we're looking at Bitcoin to start today. We are on the daily chart. We will take a look at the weekly and see where the previous weekly closed, which was more towards the 62.5 region. But we did see that we had a nice pump off of the 62.5 region on the Monday candle or Monday session. So let's take a look at that. We have Bitcoin here headed up to the upper first standard deviation. That is right around 64.5. Looks like the close came in just shy of 64,500 at 64.9762 here for the index chart. And we're going to, kind of dive into the daily here by taking a look at the levels. These are the levels that you know and love because Bitcoin has been stuck in between 62.5 and $65,000 on a close with some swings outside of it to the bottom side and the top side here. And realistically, not much has changed. But we have seen a nice run to the bottom side of the range. This occurred on Friday. And then subsequently over the weekend, just kind of went sideways. A little bit of a lower close there, but as it stands right now, we do have a slightly higher high. We have slightly higher closing highs, and this is a higher low, but it's still just a very tight range. So if Bitcoin can make it to the top side of this range, you can see the upper second standard deviation is right in line with these swings outside of 65.1. That's coming in at around the 65.5 region. So if we did start to see closes above there, which is also this close open deviation of the range, and some people are going to have ranges drawn a little bit differently here. But as it stands right now, we need to see closes above 62.5. And even in lower term time frames, 62.5. We got closes above 62.5. We just bounced from there. But if we do see closes, more importantly, above 65.5, well, then the top side closes and swings are in play. We had basically a front run of $68,000 up here. If we did see true expansion, it's going to occur on closes above around 67 to 67.3. That would be an expansive move targeting right around 68 to 69K here, daily level. Also the prior all-time high up to the bottom side of the weeklies initially for me, somewhere around 70,000, 70,500 or so. If we did happen to see Bitcoin close, especially above $68,000, I would look for it to start targeting this 70,500 on the bottom side to 72 to 72.2 on the top side of these weeklies up here. And maybe even more if it starts to get daily closes above there, because the weekly is, as you'll see in just a moment, kind of pointing towards a very important area right above 72. Take it $2,000 at a time to around 74, and then 74 to 76 is the major zone up here. That is where we had the last swing higher low of the bull market in and around the 74 to 74.5, and a lot of price action in and around 74 to 76 with some weeklies as well on some closes up there. So closes, of course, on the daily below the weeklies. So big areas to the upside. And then, of course, the downside, pretty easy. If we did drop the 62.5 region, wicks are fair game down here and some of the closes. But more importantly, if we start to see 61.5 to around 61,000, you can give it some room. This is 61,281 here on the index, but 61.5 to $61,000 is kind of the name of the game. If we start to see Bitcoin dropping that area around these swing lows with closes, of course, coming in below the lower second and the lower third, then realistically we're targeting the actual lows again. Big monthly area between right around $58,800 to $60,000. And then the overall zone that I had been calling for since, we rejected like $98,000 or something. If we dropped, the 70, 474.5 region. I was looking for 58 to 60. Of course, we got 60 exactly on the bigger move down, and then subsequently later 58, and even swung 58 there at 57,750. So that would be the main area to look for to the downside on any daily closes that start to move below 62.5. It's going to look like we're going to see price action swing the actual wicks down here. And if it starts to close below them, that'd be initiating expansion down to this area as support again. Of course, if we start to lose the bottom side around that $58,000, I would be looking, especially on expansion, I'd be looking for more than just a swing below to actually swing 57,750, but I'd be looking more for 54 to 56 down here on the top side of the weeklies, and substantially more below there, as it would open up the mid to low 50s, 52.5 to 54, and then below there 48 to 50, and just one step at a time. If the conditions are met on closes and on expansion, then great. If not, don't worry about it. And beware if we are expanding into supports down here to the bottom side, or expanding into resistances up here on the top side. For right now, it's just a consolidation. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the weekly, and we'll see how the bands are lining up with some of these weekly levels of interest as well. As I noted last week, we had the lower first that was right on 62.5, but now giving a little bit of breathing room to the downside for the weekly. But again, you need to see the swings hold up. It's right around 62, 1 to 2, depending on your chart. 62, 2 kind of being the floor for a swing outside of 62.5 that I know many are looking for, including myself, if we did see a swing below 62.5 in the lower term timeframes. But if it did go any further than that, it's going to take the full set of wicks down here. And if we saw any weekly closes, not just daily closes, but if we hadn't already come down to test 58 to 60, then I'd be looking for these areas down here in the red. Any more than that, we're looking down 54 to 56 with lower seconds coming in. And if we look even further down, we see lower third working its way towards our 48 to 50 level down here. And of course, if we lost these weeklies, hypothetically speaking, as Bitcoin consolidates up here, not really a concern right now. But if we lost these weeklies, if it did approach them, bottom side, 52.5 to 54, then it's really, 52.5 to 50. It's where the ETF spike highs came in, right around that 49 to 50K region, but it would open up the bear market lower highs of 21.22, right around that 48 to 50 area. Potentially more down to that close open at 45.5. Now to the upside, you can see weekly basis band right in there between right around 68 to 69K. In this case, it's like 68.3 on the bottom side for the daily area of interest, to 69.3, about $1,000 range in there, with the weekly basis band smack dab in the middle of it. Anywhere above there, we start looking at the bottom side of the weekly up here, and daily area as well at 70,500 to 72.2. Anywhere above there, it's all about that upper first and the $74,000 to $76,000 zone. And if we look even further up, you can see that anywhere above there, 78 to 80, and then right back to 82.5 to $83,000, where we saw that monthly. That's the monthly close open, higher low. So the close open higher low that put in the 74.5, 74.4 swing low before the all-time high. Well, 82.5 is the close there. We did already see that tested. And of course, if Bitcoin did choose an upside route, especially within the context of the bands here, you could potentially see, working its way above $76,000, then 78 to 80. The upper second is right there in line with that monthly close open at 82.5. And then above there, you've got 86 to 89. You can call it 86 to 90 as a larger weekly zone. And of course, that was the main area of support for the weeklies, even though there was swings down below, to test some other important weeklies over here. We did see that, of course, when it broke down, we ran right to the 58 to 60, which is one of our main areas that we were looking for. So really a lot of confluence. Obviously, bands still expanding to the downside, flattening out on the top side here. If Bitcoin does rise towards the basis, I would expect the bands to start trending sideways. So Bulls are hoping for a bounce here, especially for the weekly. Here you see the lower high. If it can put in a consolidation higher low and then break that lower high right around $67,000, start working its way towards the basis and higher, then great. We get a nice relief rally. Doesn't do much unless we saw closes above 82.5, 82.8 up here, because that would be breaking structure. Not just on the weekly in terms of a trend reversal to trend break for the local structure down here, but potentially breaking the downtrend on the monthly. Doesn't mean the bear market is over, but it would be a structural change worth noting. And then no matter how high price starts to rally from there, it's all about the next move down into higher, lower, equal low structure to see if the structure can start to shift from trend break into trend reversal, which would then likely, it'd probably be pretty safe to call the bear market over and bull structure and bull market beginning. As it stands right now, there's no bull market. This is not a bull market. This is just a lower low. Could it become the macro low? Yes, sure. It absolutely could. Is it a macro low? No, it's not even close. And in fact, if it does trend below right around $70,000 by the lower first, lower second is the name of the game and potentially more under it right now at 51,250 or so. But if price started to move towards it, it'd be more towards $50,000, right in that zone, 48 to 50. But if we see a low set, and that's actually what is important, and I'll keep harping on this, throughout August, especially if we see a green candle. If we see a low set, great. Then we can entertain moves back to, this area here, the higher low retest on a close, 82.5. And if we get a structure break, great. Does not mean that Bitcoin's out of the woods, even if it did that. So, I have this conversation a lot with folks, but there are some new folks that are tuning in. But even if we were to set like a low here, right, and we rallied up and there was a trend break, everybody get really excited, like $90,000, top side of the upper third standard deviation on the weekly. People would get stupidly excited. Great trend break, awesome. Macro low in? No. What you do is you wait for higher low, equal low structure to actually come in, and then you say, okay, this macro low is confirmed via the trend break and the higher low, or it could come down and even swing and become an equal low. That's awesome. Then you start seeing it emerge, and only if we see a monthly trend break from here would that get interesting. And that would only really even have a chance if we start to see the low close, and that's only going to occur on closes above $67,000 now. That's how a macro low would confirm here. Does that mean that this is going to become the macro low? Am I saying that this is going to be the macro low? No, I am not. But if we set a low, then we know the criteria in which we would need to see play out in order to set a macro low. And you can't rule out that you get a deviation, right? That's why you wait after a trend breaking move. Like even if we got a trend breaking move, you need to see the higher low, equal low structure form, or you have the potential to do, deviation of trend in some cases and just end up lower, right? And that's also right around the monthly basis band, which is also right around the upper third standard deviation or 3 standard deviations away from the mean, or 20 simple on the weekly. So, it'd be something to watch. Otherwise, we don't see any of those criteria met. And quite honestly, it's all about just lower, right? And then it's, do we get a lower high? Does it rally and come up from there or something like that, right? And this is just me describing what it is that I'd be looking for a macro low to form. As it stands right now, there is no macro low. In fact, this is still a move in motion because it has not closed a low on the monthly. And we would need to, at minimum, see $67,000 closed above to actually call this a low. And with that, let's go ahead and take a look at a few other things. I like to look at oil. Oil was playing around the low 80,000. Low 80. If it was $80,000, we got big problems. Low $80 region. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. It is now in the mid $80,000 region, and here's what I was talking about. last week, especially, and that is the potential for a higher low to trend break. And you might recall me talking about this even on Friday. No, not on Friday. It was on Wednesday of last week, I believe. Is watch this high. This is the lower high, right? Watch for a higher low that gets a trend break because that is a reversal setup. And now we do have that in place. So we have a higher low. We have a trend break. We did get a gap down to retest, and it's currently sitting on our line right here at 84 bucks. Now, I would look to 86 to 87, the next high by the upper first. Anywhere above there, look to 88 to $90 per barrel. Anywhere above there, 90 to 95 is fair game. If we start to see any expansion above the upper third, we can start entertaining trips to 98 to 102.5. Now, where does this change? Back below this swing low at 80 bucks. Then it's right back into the zone here where we see the lower first kind of right around the middle. It's a little on the upper end of the zone there, but anywhere below 80 bucks, then we're starting to look back to right around 76 to 79. You can call it 76, even though this is more towards 77 to 79. I would call it 76 to 79 because you can account for some of the swings down here and a little bit of liquidity grabbing. But anywhere below there, this low is in danger around 74 to the upper $73 per barrel area. And then if that starts to fall apart, then we're looking realistically, all the way down to 70 and then 60 to 70 from there. Could have bounced and front run it like 72? Sure. Yeah. But for the moment, this is lining up to be a range. And it's really about if we see rallies up to 88 to 90 up here, and then any recovery of that area towards 95 and potentially back towards 98 to 102.5. You can call, $100 per barrel break even there. And then it's really all about getting below, right? This kind of red box area, or red outlined area with the bottom side there at like 76 to 77 bucks per barrel. When looking at traditional markets, let's go ahead and take a look at SPY. SPY has put in a high, and I would be very aware. It did close below and will continue with its open, I suspect, below the upper first standard deviation because this is going to move up. Beware of any price action that begins to drop the actual. I know that structure would change below this swing low. But I prefer the more defined low here at 760, 746. Anywhere below there, you can entertain retests to 755 to the highs here, right? You can start looking. I would look even lower, right around 755 to 760. That's kind of the name of the game to the downside. And then to the upside, if we do see the high taken out at right around 779, 780 region, probably want to see closes above there. If we haven't already tried, I'd be looking for 785, and then on to 790 up there. And that's stuff we've talked about that before. Anywhere above there, I would take it 5 points at a time, 795 to 800. 800 to 805 by the upper third. This is a pretty nice expansion. So even if this does come back down, I would look for a topside consolidation. If it drops 755, look towards 750, 745 at worst, for it to try for a continuation higher. But you wouldn't want to see it anywhere below 745, to be quite honest. That would look pretty nasty. And being below the basis band wouldn't look good. Realistically, if it does come down to test, you want to see it testing 755 to 760 and then taking off from there. Otherwise, you want local consolidation and then move up if you want to see continuation. For NASDAQ, hasn't quite put in the high yet, but if it does drop right around 29,932, the upper first is going to be right there. I'd be looking for moves back to 29 to 29.2. So 29, what did I say? 29,932 if it's dropped. You could look towards 29.5 to 29.4 in here around this higher low. But realistically, the name of the game is hold around 29 to 29.2 to the downside, and then try for continuation back to the highs, 30,500 to 700. Dow, we see this coming back down. Mean reverting back to the highs at 53.3. And you'd probably want to see this hold up in and around this area if you want more immediate continuation back to around 54, which is where the upper first is. And then anywhere above there, we can start looking for 54.3 and then 54.5 on the closes, and then back up towards 54.8 to 9 region, and potentially bringing 55 into play up there. But you probably want to see that high hold up if it does touch it. Right, somewhere around 53 by the basis, which is coming in right at the bottom side of the highs, to 53.3. And that's kind of the name of the game. That is the lay of the land right now. We're going to start looking at some more stuff as price action develops, especially when we do see Bitcoin break out of this range and initiate expansion, and beware of expansion into support or expansion into resistance first pass. Probably going to, grab a lot of liquidity and try to reverse off of those areas before the real trend begins. So, whether it's above these highs towards 68 to 70, or if it's below these lows back towards the lows again, look for initial reactions. There's a lot of liquidity building up on both sides, more below than above right now. This zone is kind of emptying out for bids and asks. So it's very easy to see price get volatile within that 62.5 to 65, and maybe even swings outside of it. But I think to really get some orders filled, on the ask side, it's got to get back to these highs, more towards that 67 to 68, and roping in that 70 to 72 areas of potential. And then bottom side, it's gotta dig into those lows and maybe even lower to grab some of that liquidity on the bid side. So once that gets rolling, I think it would be interesting to look at a few more things from the majors when Bitcoin does initiate that move. With that being said, I've got to go because there is some kids to pick up. So you all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. And a little Easter egg for those of you that actually listen all the way to the end. There's going to be some announcements soon. Yes, I'm making an announcement of an announcement, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. Maybe you've already caught on to it, but we'll see. Take care of yourselves. And like I said, stay safe, trade safe, and I will see you again and talk to you again. You don't see me, I don't see you. So I will talk to you again on Wednesday. Take care. Landy out.